Welcome everyone to the review rally on Primetime Mitch. Today's subject is the 2002 Steven Spielberg directed movie Catch Me If You Can, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. Pelting opinions back and forth over the net on this DreamWorks production is going to be Now Playing Debs. Please check out her Instagram page. She has some great content on there, and I thank her for joining me for this review today. Now we're going to take aspects of this movie and talk about them individually. We are long distance, so let's just give this a go. I've been tasked today with the performances of the actors in Catch Me If You Can, and this is a pretty easy subject because they are strong performances. We start with Leonardo DiCaprio, who plays Frank Abagnale Jr. This is my favourite DiCaprio movie. I'm always impressed with his ability to display the coming of age in this movie. We saw it a little bit in This Boy's Life, but in this one he sort of has to mature very quickly because he does all of this before his 19th birthday. You see that development from that vigorous, enthusiastic applause of his father when he's receiving an award. They zoom in on young Frank's face and he is teary-eyed and he is sort of so proud of his dad, and his dad is a massive influence on what Frank becomes in such a short space of time. One thing I think that Leo captures very well in this is the observational skills of Frank Abagnale Jr. He is constantly watching and looking for ways to deceive, and the facial work that DiCaprio puts in this movie is befitting of the character, I think. The immaturity is always there.
Would you like a drink after takeoff?
Milk?
But you can sort of start seeing him becoming a man with the more deception he learns and the situations he gets into. He almost has to force himself to be a man when he quite clearly isn't. And just like he charms the people on the screen, I believe he strongly charms the viewers. He has that look about him all the time. I think that's a natural thing. I don't think you can work on that kind of charming look, but he uses it to the full. I really enjoy this performance from Leonardo DiCaprio. And brilliantly countering him is Tom Hanks's Carl Hanratty, and his story is slightly more tragic. He's quite clearly sacrificed his entire life for his work, and eventually, in particular, trying to catch Frank. It's obviously ruined his marriage.
Mrs. Hanratty, Merry Christmas.
Hello, Carl.
He doesn't get home for Christmases. He doesn't see his daughter eventually. He doesn't see her at all because she's cancelling plans with him to go and spend time with his ex-wife's new partner, which is, it's a horrible sort of side story that you don't see but you know and you were aware is happening. And you get that sense that if he does catch Frank, or when he does catch Frank, is it worth it? Was it really worth it? You almost feel like when Frank says stop chasing me, you kind of wish he would stop chasing him just so he could go and enjoy his life.
Stop chasing me.
I can't stop. It's my job.
And do something other than work for the FBI. It's kind of sad how this cat and mouse game destroys one life, because Frank really comes out of it quite well in the end. There's some great strong supporting performances. Christopher Walken is the perfect father for Frank, the Frank Abagnale Sr. that creates Frank Abagnale Jr. He creates this deviance in his son because obviously he is having troubles himself. He gets divorced from his wife, he's having money troubles, and it's almost like all the tricks he's learned over time he's trying to pass on to his son so he doesn't make the same mistakes. But again, he still manages to maintain some charm throughout his troubles. You only really see the more desperate side of Senior in the bar when he's saying, you know, where are you going tonight, Frank? That's when you sort of see a more broken version. But throughout, despite the troubles, Christopher Walken maintains that sort of charming, composed, self-assured character, and I love his performance in this. And again, he's another guy who I very rarely don't like the performance of. There's also some strong cameos. Martin Sheen as Roger Strong, the would-be father-in-law of Frank. He makes me laugh in this. He's almost he's quite an intimidating character, but he has a humour about him. I liked his performance, and Jennifer Garner also pops up in this in a very short scene when Frank is a little bit above his station when it comes to the opposite sex.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Frank Sr. is the most influence in Frank's life. You can see in the beginning that scene with the necklace when he's trying to convince the lady with the suit to open the shop, that he puts his hand like this, and you see the camera focus on the necklace and on Frank's Jr.'s face, like he's watching his dad, like you said, he's observing, he's learning, watching him. So and you see he does that the same thing with the necklace. Frank Jr. later on, he's gonna do the same trick with the flight attendant on the airplane. So yeah, he's like copying. He's watching his dad. He's learning, and he thinks, he looks up to his dad because it's like, those young kids that copy the parents' habits and behavior, even though they're probably not that good, but they still don't have that judgment in their head to say, oh, this is not a good thing. They just copy because those parents are the role models. And I think for Frank, even though he's like 19 or even older, depends on the time of the movie, he still doesn't have that judgment to see, oh yeah, look, this is not a good thing to be doing all these tricks and stuff. But later on the bar scene, when he sees his dad, he's not working, this male man job, he's in the bar, he doesn't look that good, his ex-wife is about to marry his former best friend, and then when he sees his dad just looks at him and says, "What are you doing here?" He's not even happy to see him because he's like looking, at his son and what he's become, and like he's copying him, and he's like not really proud of that, even though Frank thinks that he was supposed to be proud of that, because he's copying, he's just like his dad. Uh, but then I think in that scene is when part of the universe of Frank like crumbles because like I said, he sees his dad in that situation, and like his family's not probably not gonna get back together, and but his dad is like running from the FBI, and then his dad says, the FBI is chasing me, but you know what, I'm gonna make them chase me their whole lives.
I'll make them chase me for the rest of their lives.
And I think at that point, Frank Jr. picks up and they're like, you know what? I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna get the FBI to chase me too, because he still doesn't have the judgment and he's still trying to copy his dad. So yeah, I think Frank Sr. is the biggest role model for Frank in everything he does. For Tom's role, I think his character, like you said, yeah, he only gives in a little bit of information here and there about his personal life, but you can kind of get the idea that it's not really that good. But I think also kind of unconsciously he uses work so he doesn't have to think about his own life. For example, if he's chasing Frank 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which is a lot of work, he is doesn't have time to think about his daughter and his ex-wife in Chicago and all that mess that's going on. So maybe it's probably unconsciously, but I think he's also kind of like running away too from his life. Like Frank is running, from the authorities, but he's kind of like running away, avoiding his life.
Onto the subject of the look of the movie, which I'm going to hand over to Debs.
Hey, it's Deb here from Now Playing Debs, and I got invited by Mitch to talk about Catch Me If You Can. I love this movie, and first I want to talk about the look of the movie. I love how Steven Spielberg is so good at, telling the story without using words. Like, for example, in the beginning of the movie, he uses the camera to zoom out of Frank to show that we're gonna go on a flashback, or he puts the camera zooming on a gun, approaching a room, like there's some action about to happen, or whenever there's a lie going on, you see there's like a zoom and the camera stops on somebody's face so we can see the reaction. I really love that, and how the objects are also used to tell the story. Like when he's trying to cash a check, the cashier puts the check up to look at it, but then Frank it's like, oh no, 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 he tries to distract her, and then like, don't look at my lights, look at my face, so I distract her, you know. That's really good. One thing that I really love about this movie is the labels. Like, he always peels off the labels of the bottles, and to me that's like his identity. His Because there's also that scene in the when Carl also catches him and gets his wallet, and then there's just labels in there. To me, the labels are his identities. Like, he might not have any money or anything in his wallet, but he has all those different labels. His different masks are in there. And later on in the party, when he sees one of the bottles without a label, he knows that Frank is at that party because that's his identity. And I love how he uses objects. Also, whenever he escapes, you see either an object moving or flying, or there's some type of movement. The first time he escapes from Carl, you see the blinds moving. The second time, you see the dollar bill flying. There's also the airport scene, the airplane. When he escapes from prison, you see the door moving, or in the plane, you see the plane is moving. And I like that, you know, that also it's really good. And I think there's a lot of blue in the movie. And in cinema, blue usually represents like loneliness. And because of his story with his family and stuff, I think Frank was very lonely, and he was always, you know, looking for like some type of family. And even though there's that scene that he's with all the flight attendants, they're all in blue, even though he's surrounded by people, they're all in blue, like he's surrounded by loneliness. So I really love that representation of the colors and objects and the scenes that tell the story more than words. And the same thing happens in when the scene when he's with Brenda's family and they're all watching TV and laughing and singing, and Brenda cuddles with her dad, and then he looks and he starts crying, kind of crying but still singing. And you see that even though he does all what he does, and he has money and stuff, what he really wants is family. So I really love, you know, how this movie tells, you know, how Spielberg is so good at telling the story without words per se.
Well, we talked about Frank's observation. I think that's such a good observation from Debs about the labels, about it being his masks. He almost peels away the identity of everything else and takes it himself. That's a great point. And it is, again, that ties in with the look of the movie, because it's those visuals. And like Debs says, Spielberg is very good at telling the story without the words and just letting your eyes figure things out. There is that feeling throughout, things moving, constantly moving, the plane taking off, even when he, like she said, when he busts out of jail, you know, he's still running away at that point and he's still being chased. There's always that feeling of cat and mouse throughout, and it's not just from the performance, from the sound, from the words, from the dialogue, it's from what you're seeing in front of you. And it took me a couple of watches sort of to understand the final point there about him wanting the family. I sort of, when I saw him sat with the family when they were singing along to the TV and they were so close knit, I always thought it was just Frank sort of not really relating to it, because he never really had that himself. He only had the occasional moment with his parents would dance in the living room, or, you know, he didn't really have that close-knit family. So I thought it was him not relating, but I do actually think there is probably a great sadness in there, and the amount of blue that she speaks about with the loneliness factor. I think Frank is tremendously lonely throughout. I do think at one point, if I remember rightly, Carl does sort of almost mock him a little over the phone about how he's spending his time and his Christmas. So yeah, the loneliness factor is there through the visuals. So all good points. Can't argue with any of that. Now, the score of this movie I actually shouldn't really like, so I'm not a massive jazz fan, and there's quite a lot of jazz in there. But there is a lot of period music between the 20s and the 50s and the 60s, dependent on the time. Now, John Williams' body of work speaks for itself. This one is sort of almost, it goes under the radar. It is quite neatly done because it has that element all the time. Every little piece of music on the soundtrack for this movie has the element of mischief. In between the tracks, like Embraceable You, Come Fly With Me, those kind of things. But in between you get those little jazzy numbers, just an element of, you know, you can almost hear the words Catch Me If You Can. it's almost very whimsical and light. There's not too much that's dark and ominous throughout, even though there are some sad scenes. Of course, when he finds out about his father's death, about his parents' divorce, and obviously Debs taps into the loneliness. You don't get a lot of those kind of numbers throughout to sort of depict this. You almost have to figure that out for yourself. But overall, it's a really suited score to this movie, and again, John Williams will always find the right notes and find the right mood and atmosphere to create for any such film, and this I think it succeeds.
And good catch on the score thing, the music, because I realized that the music, it kind of goes on with the time that the movie takes place, but I didn't catch on that Come Fly With Me and Embraceable You, like, Embrace Me, Catch Me. That's really good. And this is why this is one of my favorite movies of all time, because you see how many layers this movie has that just complements the movie. Like I said, every time I watch it, there's something new that I catch and I look and I realize, and now is the score. I didn't even realize that, so that was really good for you to point it out.
As far as the story goes, I don't think so, because it's a biography, so there's not much we can change in there. But one thing on the story that I kind of don't like it is that in the beginning, the beginning starts at the end, so it kind of already tells you, catch me if you can. It already shows you what happened. And because it's a movie about deceiving, and this guy that's such a good con man and likes to lie, I think that because he's already telling you what happens, it kind of like defeating the purpose of the theme per se. So that's something I would change, or I think it could be better. And to me also seems like the lies that he tells are so shallow, even like, how was he able to be a doctor and a lawyer and nobody really catched up on that like so quick, because those are very technical professions. And a pilot, how was he like with the pilot being a co-pilot, and then the pilot would ask him something and he'll be like, oh, or did he know that?
It's been a while since I've done this. Which one's the jump seat again?
Or did he know a little bit, or he, it didn't show how he could get along with those things too much. It just showed in that part when he was trying, he was acting as a doctor, that, he saw the blood and he was like, but it didn't really go far on how to explore how he was getting along, how he was able to go so far doing that. So that's something that I think it could be improved, but I think that would turn the movie into a 5-hour movie, so.
Well, with this being my favourite DiCaprio movie, I tend to struggle to find things I would change about it, but I do sort of see where Debs is going when she talks about them giving it away at the beginning. You already know what's going on because they sort of tell you it's already happened, and then they go back and give you the story. I think letting you find out for yourself throughout might have given you that feeling of being deceived throughout. Agree that with it being a biopic, you kind of just have to take it face value. This is what happened. I don't know how many scenes you can go through of him getting through being a doctor, being a lawyer, being a pilot, and how he sort of manages it without sort of whittling it down to the main lies, the main pieces of deception, the main cons that he perpetrates. There are some ones that I think are a little far-fetched. I understand the distraction technique that his father taught him, and I liked, obviously, when we talk about the look of the movie, I'll go back to that. I liked the fact that you saw it from their perspective. So they're looking at the check, and then it sort of blurs the check out and goes to Frank's face, and then that's the distraction. That was nicely shot, but I'm not absolutely convinced that that would always work. But I guess, again, if it's a biopic, it must have happened. Whether it happened to that extent, I don't know. There is a lot of artistic license in movies of this kind. That remains to be seen. You've just got to suspend your disbelief, I suppose. But I would agree that it would have been nice to see just how he got along as a pilot, because he must have surely flown a plane at some point, or was it just all we got to see was him walking to and from the airport, being the co-pilot, being the deadhead, at the start. We never actually saw him fly a plane. I'd like to know and maybe do a bit of research. I think this is just on face value. I have seen this film 4 or 5 times, but I never researched just exactly what Frank Abagnale Jr. did in the time he was doing these professions. So I guess it would have been nice to know a little bit about that. But I would certainly agree that I would have been okay if this movie had started from when he was a child. We didn't need that little game show thing at the beginning. I think that sort of starts the movie off almost telling you how it's going to finish. My overall thoughts on Catch Me If You Can is it's a really fun movie. I kind of dig that almost bullshitting your way through life, but doing it in a charming, likeable way. Not one point in this movie do you think that Frank is a horrible person. You perhaps feel very sorry for Brenda. She is a victim in all of this, and I don't think he intended to hurt her. That's probably the only time he sort of borders on being unlikable. It's fascinating to see his journey, and at such a young age, and you've always got in the background that this is a true story, which is also, I think, elevates this movie a bit, because they're telling you something that you have to believe. I like one review that said it was a remarkable parable about denying reality until reality catches up with you. It does work out for him in the end. I think the one person that suffers throughout this is the guy that catches him. I really feel sorry for Tom Hanks's character, because he just becomes lost in this world of and fixates on this. He's tunnel visioned. He's fixated on catching Frank and nothing else. And unfortunately it costs him a lot of happiness along the way. So I think he's the one character that really loses out in this movie. Some great performances, really nice tone throughout, and just really enjoy this movie. And I've always said this is my favourite DiCaprio movie, because he's played some heavy roles in the past, but this one I can watch again and again, and it's sort of, I always get a good feeling from it.
All right, so overall, I love this movie. Whenever I see it on, or I have an opportunity to watch, I watch it. And it's one of those movies that I just can't stop looking at the screen, and there's always something new that I catch on. And there's my 3 favorite actors, Christopher Walken, Leo, and Tom Hanks. And I think this last time I watched, it really stuck up to me, the family theme, like when his parents, like Frank's parents, divorced, and seems like they were like, oh, who you want to pick? And then, but it seems like he wanted to be picked by somebody, and because of that he ran away. He wanted to be somebody's concern. He wanted to be somebody to worry about him, even if it's in a bad way. That's why he's always like running away, because he wants somebody to worry about him. And you know, he always calls Carl in during Christmas, which I think it's a time that family gathers, that, you know, it seems like he wanted Carl to worry about him, and kind of like a dad does.
You have no one else to call.
Oh.
And at the end, when the FBI releases him, and then Carl says, oh, I'll be responsible for him, it's like he got that relief. Okay, somebody is like responsible for me, is, you know, like my dad. He always, I think this family theme really stuck up to me this time. And I think that's it. There's anything else that you would like to add up? Anything that I missed? I want to hear your opinion.
No, I mean that's exactly how I feel, and I think it's great as well that after a couple of watches I understood the family theme slightly more. I do agree that he almost wants to be chased because somebody then wants him. It's almost like he didn't get enough from his parents because the divorce, they were so wrapped up in each other, and the thing about picking one of them, that's obviously something that many people have been through. I think that he almost felt alone right from that moment, but when he got into the wide world on his own, he wanted some kind of support and somebody to love him and to want him, and Carl chasing him was the nearest thing he had. And you're right, probably a father figure as well, that's why he called him up. So yeah, I love this movie, and I'm glad you do as well, Debs, and I'm glad many people out there receive it so well. And yeah, I really enjoy revisiting it, and I'd probably do another watch of it at some point soon.
I just want to thank you again for the invitation. This was really fun to do. I love this movie, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for watching the review rally today. Thank you so much to Now Playing Debs for her contributions to this. Really, really fun to revisit a movie that both of us have a great deal of love for. I'm happy to do a rally like this on any other movie out there. Get in touch with me and I'm happy to do it. I love pushing content of others. Thank you so much for watching the channel, watching this video. Please smash a like below. Please add what you think about this film in the comments section if there's anything you think we missed. And please hit the subscribe button and that notification bell to get more updates on content for Primetime Mitch. This has been me, 𝐒𝐿𝐊𝐄. That was Now Playing Debs joining me, and thank you very much, and I will see you very soon.
I'm sorry, but I have to go.